Film noir is a style of crime film, or perhaps a subgenre or its own genre, depending on who you ask. It grew into prominence in the US in the 40s and continued into the 50s, and of course now lives on in the tradition of neo-noir film, which is its own story and its own category. The definition of noir is a little bit blurry, but within definitions you'll often see terms like shadows, femme fatales, gray morality, winding storytelling, and of course, centered on crime. If you're looking for more obscure noir picks, then you probably already know the definition, so we'll blow right past that. I'm not going to argue that these are, never seen before. These aren't the most obscure movies in the world. People have seen them and know of them, but these certainly have a lower profile than some of the classics, and hopefully I can point some people to them if they're not familiar. I just picked an arbitrary cutoff of 15,000 views on Letterboxd just as a specific criteria, and just wanted to pick a few, and that seemed like a good spot to cut things off at. I'm going to start off with a couple honorable mentions. These did not meet the view cutoff. I just wanted to highlight a couple things about them. The first one is The Hitch-Hiker, directed by Ida Lupino. I mostly wanted to just highlight her with this, given that a female director in the 40s at this point, not super common, especially not in noir. I don't know if I've seen another noir by a female director yet. I'm sure there are some other ones, but I wanted to highlight her, not just because of The Hitchhiker, which shows a lot of directing talent to begin with, but also her other movie, Outrage. I mean, she's directed more than these two, but Outrage is another one that I've seen, which I think is really great. And then also, definitely higher profile, but The Thin Man, which I want to use to introduce kind of the time period element a little bit. Because The Thin Man came out 7 years before The Maltese Falcon, which it seems is a commonly agreed upon starting point for noir as a style, subgenre, what have you. So when The Thin Man was released, it was certainly not thought of as a film noir because that didn't exist yet. But I did want to highlight it as an example of comedy being a part of noir. Even though you normally see bleakness and, the fatalistic influence of poetic realism upon film noir, it's possible for it to be comedic. You could probably also look at Monsieur Vedo, which I think is sometimes considered noir, but it's in a similar kind of bucket where it's got some of the aesthetic, it's got the crime, it's got the low-to-the-ground view of society, of crime in general. And also, I just love it. It's underseen because everyone should see it. And if you are trying to introduce people who are not familiar with older cinema to older cinema, I think The Thin Man is a great choice because Nick and Nora are just timeless, and people always love mysteries. Number 4, I'm going to start cheating immediately here. I'm just going to call this Marcel Carne. Also, apologies for the French pronunciations. I'm going to do my best, but I can only do so much. He was a prominent, and for my money, the best example of poetic realism, which was a French movement from the 30s, which had a strong influence on noir as a movement. And it was a key influence because 2 reasons. One, aesthetics, the shooting style, especially I'm referring to Carne's work. The 3 movies in question that I'm highlighting here, at least, Port of Shadows, Les Jour, Levre, and Hôtel du Nord, are all of the same material as film noir. They all share those same sort of like femme fatale characteristics, the shadowy aesthetics, a sort of fatalistic, darker take on things. And those were all characteristics of poetic realism. Poetic realism did not have to be crime. It did not necessarily have the same story complexities that you might expect from a noir. But if you watch something like Port of Shadows, I think, you can absolutely see that it's a sort of genre-shifted noir. And I say genre-shifted because its focus is on the romantic aspect more so than the crime aspect, I would say. The crime aspect matters. It's a key aspect of the movie, like it is with all 3 of these. But nonetheless, if the romantic quality and the crime quality exist on like a continuum, noir is often going to be shifted towards the crime quality, but the romance quality is still absolutely present and important. These films are more like the romantic quality is emphasized, but the crime quality is still present and important. So these didn't exist within the context of noir at the time. That was not what these would have been called. But to me, these are great examples of a slightly different take on the style of noir. Still awesome movies that have a ton of great qualities. And I think there's no problem with including them in the same bucket in retrospect. Also, I just love this man. His work is so good. Just wanted a chance to plug him as well. So also go watch Children of Paradise, even though that's not noir. Number 3, The Big Combo. This was directed by Joseph H. Lewis, who was a B-movie director with a ton of talent, the ability to do a whole lot with little budget. I've only seen a few of his movies, but three noirs, this one and Gun Crazy, and My Name is Julia Ross. I might have screwed that one up, but I think it's Julia Ross. Gun Crazy is certainly influential in its own right. Doomed lovers involved in crime. You know, by now you've seen that type of story a number of times, but Joseph H. Lewis gives an early spin on it, gives a lot of directorial talent in terms of knowing what to shoot, knowing what to portray. I think this film has a very effectively seedy personality to it. I think it's got a lot of darkness in it. Not overbearing, I wouldn't say, but it's just a palpable atmosphere of danger. And a lot of that is heightened by the way the villain is treated. The villain is very clearly smart. He understands his actions. He understands the importance of kind of disengaging from what he's doing in a certain sense. You see that throughout the film in a variety of ways. There's great use of sound in a couple spots as well. Two absolutely just stunning moments to me. I won't get into details. I'm not spoiling anything in this because I just want people to experience it if they haven't. But great use of sound, great visual accents in certain spots. There's some great noir atmosphere in alleys with the fog and the mist and the shadows and everything like that. Helene Stranton as Ida is a wonderful love interest. I think she's captivating whenever she's on screen. Absolutely recommend this one. This one's a great movie. It's one of my favorite noirs, period. Next, we will move on to The Setup, which to me, I would argue, is the best boxing movie ever made. There's honestly a lot of competition, as much as boxing doesn't have that much of a presence in the current zeitgeist, I suppose. It's produced a ton of great movies over the years. But to me, this is the top. This is directed by Robert Wise, one of the perhaps now less discussed greats, who has quite a diverse filmography. He directed things like Sound of Music, West Side Story, but not just musicals and noir either. He's also done horror, he's done westerns, he's done science fiction, historical dramas, multiple Best Director winners, or maybe Best Picture winners. Regardless, a lot of successful movies, a ton of diversity in his catalog, including this one, of course, one of my favorite noirs. There's just a ton of imaginative visuals. There's some great shot composition. The introduction sequence outside the venue is just fantastic. Fantastic at setting the mood of an audience member. Fantastic at doing a little bit of visual storytelling. The way the boxing is shot, I think, is fantastic. It's really convincing. It's lit great. Like, the ring looks so good. It's shot from like a low angle to make them look imposing. The film spends a lot of time focusing on things that are not the main character, which I think could sound like a sort of backhanded compliment or maybe just a straight up insult, depending on the film. But I think in this movie, it serves a great purpose, again, emphasizing the audience, but also emphasizing things that are important outside of the ring, which I think is a key part of the film's themes and its messaging, which I also really love the way that comes across. Number 1, we're going back to France, this time within the actual time period of noir. So this is perhaps an easier argument for being a noir. Panique. This is directed by Julien Duvivier. who is another French director who conveniently got started with poetic realism. But this one is certainly more straight up noir. Like I said, it's an easier argument than Carne's work. One of my favorite performances in any movie is Viviane Romance. She's just breathtaking, man. She transitions between her moods and her emotions and her parts she's playing within the movie so well. She's just captivating whenever she's on screen. The film keeps you guessing with people's motives and people's wants and desires so well. The characters are just constantly shifting. There's, I think, an admirable job at making an unlikable character likable. And I think that's an extremely difficult task, because normally if someone is unlikable, or if you as an audience member have a problem with something, you have to, as someone making the movie, if you want to reverse that, you kind of have to not only provide the kind of like a strong opposing force to bring them back into your favor, but you usually have to address the underlying issue so that the audience member kind of resolves that conflict before they can kind of change their opinion overall. And that's a lot to have to do in a full runtime. So you have to be efficient, and you also have to be good at those two, separate aspects of repairing a character's image in the course of your film. So it's not an easy task, but this movie kind of nails it. Again, not going to go into details about how or whatnot, but I think that's extremely impressive, how economically it does that while still advancing everything and keeping all these moving parts spinning. It's got great social commentary. It's deeply human. It utilizes this traveling circus in town quite well. Yeah, this is... I'm very excited to rewatch this again soon, because this could be an all-time favorite for me. I absolutely loved this movie the first time around, and I'm looking forward to seeing it again. But that's it. That's the 4, or really, I guess, what did I name? 8 recommendations, whatever. Watch them all. Maybe you've already seen all of them. Maybe if you've already seen these and like these, then you can leave me some recommendations, because I'm out there looking for more. I want to watch more of Joseph H. Lewis. I want to watch more of Ida Lupino. Her filmography seems fairly easy to complete, because I think she only directed like 7 or 8 films. But yeah, I mean, there's tons of noir out there. I'm excited to keep going through it and find even more films I love. So hopefully you enjoy some of these.